Hello, my name is Ian Dutton and I'm the editor of the South African Medico-Legal Reports. Welcome to 2025. We hope that we're going to have a prosperous and interesting and exciting year ahead. There are many developments going on in the field of medico-legal matters at the moment. Very interesting times, challenging times, but we've got a very exciting program at the South African Medico-Legal Reports. We've been working very hard at putting this product together. In fact, for the last 6 months or so, we've been working on the website on getting the medico-legal reports ready, and I'm getting the quantum guidelines ready, which I'll talk to you about in a moment. But I just want to mention two things before we start. Firstly, please mark the date, 26th of January 2025, 7 p.m. is the official launch of the South African Medico-Legal Reports, and we're also going to be doing an annual review of important medico-legal matters during the evening. We've got some very exciting speakers lined up, and we will release further information about that over the next few weeks. So please mark the date for the 26th of January. And then there's the second thing that I must mention to you is that we are releasing on the 26th of January two works. One is the South African Medico-Legal Reports themselves, the launch edition, which will cover 2024, particularly the second half of 2024, which is when we started monitoring the medico-legal reports closely, and the quantum guidelines. Now, the quantum guidelines takes a whole fresh new look at the whole question of evaluating quantum in medico-legal matters, and in particular general damages. So it's a fresh approach to general damages. We believe that's going to be an absolutely useful book. I'm going to add a lot of value and help to properly quantify general damages, and to get for the plaintiffs, get as much as you can, and for the defendants to try to come up with an accurate assessment, a lower assessment of general damages. I'll talk to you about those two works in a second, but I just want to mention that the cut-off date for the print run has to be the 7th of January. In other words, by Tuesday, the print run is going to be cut off. The reason for that is that the South African Medico-Legal Reports print edition runs into over 1,000 pages, I think at last count, approximately 1,000 pages. And that is a very high quality work, a hardcover, individually stitched and sewn sections. And all of them, there's a lot of work that goes into producing a book like that, and all of that takes time. So we need about 2 to 3 weeks to allow the printers a fair chance to get that book out on time. We're already cutting the margins a bit fine, but we will push that through the system. So unfortunately, we have to cut off our print run for those who want it available by the 26th of January. Please get your orders in now. We've got a special for 3,499 Rand for both works. That's the launch edition of the Medico-Legal Reports and the Quantum Guidelines. Now, just to mention very briefly about the Medico-Legal Reports and then the Quantum Guidelines. What the Medico-Legal Reports covers is personal injury matters, and we do include unlawful arrest and detention. We believe the principles are close enough to the traditional personal injury matters that we can comfortably accommodate unlawful arrest, detention and prosecution cases. But what we do differently at the Medico-Legal Reports in our selection of cases is because we're focused on a particular field, we can look at a tremendous range of cases. We look at approximately 50 cases a month. And what we do is we go to the essence of the case, extract the essence, simplify the essence, and then make that available to you. So we actually help you to do your research far more efficiently, and importantly, to stay on top of key legal principles. There is a wealth of information out there which is being produced, but the traditional law reports don't pick up on that information. The traditional law reports look at groundbreaking cases, precedent-setting cases. Our approach is different. Our test is this case relevant to practice? Is it useful to practice? If the answer is yes, then we will consider including that case in the medico-legal reports. Obviously, the space is limited, but because we can include such a wide range of cases, we're able to add a tremendous amount to understanding of the practical aspects of running a practice. Now, we include about 29 cases in the launch edition of the South African Medico-Legal Reports, and that covers substantive law. We also look at procedural aspects and evidence. So the substantive law, we would look, as I say, not only at precedent-setting cases, although we will. There's a recent case, this Discovery Health case, which we will obviously We've included that in the launch edition. We've had to push to get that in on time, but we've done that. And then we also look at evidential aspects, so they're really practical aspects, such as where judges make remarks regarding cross-examination or writing an expert report, something of that nature. The launch edition will cover the second half of 2024, and then we will produce quarterly reports of the South African medico-legal reports, which will coincide with the 4 court terms. If you want to, you can order the full annual subscription, which will obviously be cost effective, but the link is available in this email as well. Then I just want to talk briefly about the Quantum Guidelines. The Quantum Guidelines is a really been an incredible project. We've had a look at the traditional way in which general damages are quantified in South Africa, and we've then introduced a number of features into the Quantum Guidelines to make the information contained in that booklet particularly useful in practice. And there are 3 main elements that I want to discuss with you. Firstly, the traditional approach is in terms of comparative values of awards. We do that, but our approach is that we place more emphasis on more recent cases. The reason for that is that the judgments are clear, that the judge's evaluation over time changes. And so it's important to have a recent assessment of the value of cases. That's one of the key principles that we follow. But we also believe that it's not really useful to simply put cases into distinct injury categories. What we do is we do begin with the injury categories, but we try to give a better sense of that case. And so we look at what is technically the injury diagnosis and the outcome diagnosis, and include a sense of the outcome diagnosis as well as the injury diagnosis when we report. We believe that gives you a better feel for the case and makes it much easier to get a sense of the appropriate quantum of the awards. I should mention that we've had a look at about over 100 cases across the 10 categories, 11 categories if you include unlawful arrest and detention. And that's the first point, is that's how we select our cases and how we report the cases. Then the second section of the Quantum Guidelines is a section which is devoted to assessment factors. Now, the assessment factors are factors which should be taken into account when assessing the appropriate value, and they are effectively clinical factors. We base our assessment factors on factors which were developed in Great Britain and in Ireland. We've got the permission of the Irish Judicial Council to use those clinical assessment factors as a foundation. We've then taken those assessment factors and modified them to adapt them to the South African jurisprudence. Many of those factors do coincide, but there's certain areas where the South African jurisprudence is different from Ireland and Great Britain, and we then modify those factors to suit South Africa. What you're left with at the end of the day with the assessment factors is that an expert can then have a look at the clinical assessment factors that should be taken into account in any case involving a particular type of injury. We'll then consider whether those factors apply or not and deal with those factors. The expert on the other side can then check that report and make sure that nothing's been missed. Similarly, the attorneys, the advocates, and the judges can go through a similar process. And what this does is it helps to give structure to the assessment of general damages. Very, very effective in Britain and Ireland. We believe that South Africa, something informally along those lines happens, but we've put an intellectual rigor onto that approach, that sort of gut feel approach, and we put an injury assessment factor checklist together effectively. That's not to say that the judges are bound by awards. The judges in South Africa enjoy a very broad discretion, but it helps to give them a sense of what the appropriate value of that particular injury is and the effects of the injury. Then the third thing that we do in the Quantum Guidelines is we then have a look at key principles referred to by those 100-odd cases. And we then take those key principles relating to the assessment of of general damages, and we include those key principles relating to the assessment of general damages, and we have a section on that where we quote from the relevant portion of the judgment. We give a brief comment on that section of the judgment, and the idea is that it makes drafting of heads of argument and the assessment of the value of an award so much easier. You've got all the key comments by the judges, The key guidelines are there before you. It's not even necessary really to read the whole case, although obviously in certain circumstances where it's important to read the whole case, that obviously must be done. But they're your key principles. You've got your checklist of assessment factors and your comparative cases, and all of that means that it's so much easier for you to get quickly and easily to an accurate assessment of general damages. Thank you for your time. We are going to be releasing videos on a daily basis between now and the 26th of January. The idea of that is to provide an introduction to the South African Medico Legal Reports. I've given you an overview now of how we go about producing the content, selecting the content, but we'd like to give you a feel for how we do this. And the best way is just to show you our work. So we're going to, between now and the 26th of January, be releasing almost daily videos. We'll see how the content comes through the system, but regular videos in any event. And we hope to see you on the 26th of January. Please order that launch special. Take advantage of the launch special. I think it's a wonderful opportunity to boost your practice and to get introduced to the South African Medico Legal Reports. Thank you for your support. Thank you for your time. And I will talk to you soon again.